There have been video games that have been poorly received by critics. There have been games that try to go against everything that the series they're a part of is known for. And there are weird, obscure games that have only ever seen release in Japan. The game we're looking at today fits into all three of these categories. Some would argue that it perhaps fits too well. This is Super Adventure Rockman, a game in the Mega Man series released exclusively in Japan for the Sony PlayStation and Sega Saturn in 1998. Most Mega Man fans likely have never heard of this game, but those who have probably only know it for one reason. Former Mega Man series head Keiji Inafune, a man who had been involved with every single Mega Man game released between the series' inception in 2010, was so disgusted by this title that he publicly disowned it and issued an apology for its supposed poor quality. But is Super Adventure Rockman the worst thing that ever happened to Mega Man, or is this game simply just misunderstood? Well, that's what we're looking at today on Stuff We Play, home of everything weird and retro. Today's video, the strange Mega Man game that was disowned. But before we go on, I'd like to tell you about today's sponsor, Zen Plus. Zen Plus is part of a website that sponsored me before, Zen Market. As someone whose retro gaming tendencies often lead him to looking for Japanese exclusive games and consoles, I know that often the cheapest way to get a hold of these gaming items is to import them directly from Japan. Unfortunately though, most Japanese stores will not ship to North America. However, if you shop using the Zen Plus section of Zen Market, there will be absolutely no additional fees and, from my experiences, even more savings. Zen Plus contains a variety of shops within it, including a plushie shop, a Japanese snack shop, a dedicated SNK shop, and even Marin Games, a retro game store that has both an incredible selection and consistently low prices. No joke, of 57 pages of items on this shop, when sorted from lowest price to highest, 48 of them contain games under $10 USD. But most importantly for a lot of you, if you shop on Zen Plus between now and the 3rd of December 2019, you'll be able to take part in the Zen Plus Black Friday sale, where many stores will offer free domestic shipping and prices up to 96% off on some items. If you want to check out the sale, then go to zenmarket.jp or follow the link in the description to see not only the sale itself, but also some of my personal favorite Japanese Mega Man stuff that's available on Zen Plus. Remember though, you only have until the 3rd of December 2019 to check out the Zen Plus Black Friday sale, so check it out while you still can, using the link either in the description or in the pinned comment. And now, let's dive in and find out why Super Adventure Rockman even exists. Like with many games, Super Adventure Rockman's development can be traced back to the release of another game. In this case, that's Mega Man 8, or Rockman 8. Disclaimer, in Japan, Mega Man is known as Rockman, due to his non-super fighting robot form being known as just Rock. That goes along with his sister robot's name, Roll. See, it's a music pun, just like how in Japan Mega Man's brother, Proto Man, is known as Blues. Anyways, for the sake of consistency, I'll be using the westernized names for this video, as those are the names that I've used since I was a kid. So, Mega Man 8 was released in Japan on the 17th of December 1996 for the PlayStation 1. An enhanced version of Mega Man 8, with additional features such as some extra boss fights, would come the following month for the Sega Saturn. Mega Man 8, however, also marked a departure for the series. Every single mainline classic Mega Man game up to this point had been released exclusively on Nintendo consoles. However, due to Mega Man 8 having elements such as animated cutscenes, and due to Nintendo opting for their Nintendo 64 console to use cartridges instead of CDs like the competition, those in charge at developer Capcom opted to make Mega Man 8 for Nintendo's two main rival platforms. However, Mega Man series head Keiji Inafune saw this as something that could potentially alienate a lot of Mega Man fans, particularly those who are dedicated to their Nintendo consoles. As such, he went off to begin developing a new Mega Man platformer for the Super Nintendo console, called Rockman and Forte. This game would feature graphics very similar to Mega Man 8, and would even feature the return of 2 Robot Master bosses from that title. It would see release in 1998. Though Inafune was now being held up by development of this new Mega Man game, some at Capcom seemed to want a new classic title for the PlayStation, despite Mega Man 8 being new at this time. Capcom wanted a game that could potentially do something new and unique with the classic series. From what little info I can gather, this all happened sometime in mid to late 1996. Before we go on, I'd just like to quickly go over the Mega Man games that had either been recently released or were in the works at this time, including spin-offs. Between 1996 and 1998, the Mega Man series saw the release of not only Mega Man 8 and Rockman Forte, but also Mega Man X3 on the PlayStation 1 and Saturn, Mega Man X4, Mega Man Legends, Mega Man 2 The Power Fighters in arcades, and a kart racing spin-off Mega Man Battle and Chase for the PS1. That's 7 different games across the span of 3 years. It's clear that Capcom was putting a lot of resources into the Mega Man series, on top of the resources being put into their other series, such as Resident Evil. Somewhere in all of this seeming chaos, Capcom management got into contact with those at another development studio, Koyosha Limited. This was a studio started in April 1996 by Hiroshi Nakamura, shortly after his departure from developer Data East. They would later become known for their 2D and 3D animation work, with some of their best known contributions to gaming being graphical work done for Grandia and the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games. Super Adventure Rockman would be a game that would heavily rely on full motion video sequences, a style of game that had been very popular in the early 1990s. It seemed that some at Capcom had wanted a Mega Man game like this for some time, and according to Inafune in a later interview, it seems to be an idea that was thought up within Capcom and then outsourced to Koyosha. The game would see development throughout 1997, with most of the work seeming to be put into the animated cutscenes. The game would play out like a visual choose-your-own-adventure story. Certain paths could be taken throughout the game, depending on choices made at key intervals. Just to occasionally shake things up, there would sometimes be a quick-time event sequence or first-person view battle. As far as alternate paths go, there would be one true ending to the game, with a variety of game over scenes that, themselves, would be considered bad endings. Sometime late into development, issues arose at Koyosha, and Capcom themselves had to step in to finish the game. This included bringing in Inafune as producer. He apparently hated the game that he saw, but it seemed to be too close to completion to restart from scratch. Super Adventure Rockman itself would span 3 whole CDs, and would see release on the 25th of June 1998 for the PlayStation 1, with a Saturn release following shortly afterwards. For the sake of this video, we're looking at the PS1 version, as the Saturn version, like most Saturn games, is just really expensive. Super Adventure Rockman, despite many Mega Man fans seeing it as nothing more than a poor quality oddity and being disowned by Inafune, actually got fairly decent reviews after launch. Reviewers for Japanese publication Famitsu gave both versions of the game a 27 out of 40. That's about 68%. So, not great, but perhaps not as terrible as Inafune thought? Anyways, let's dive into the game itself and find out for ourselves. Just a heads up though, I don't own a Japanese PS1. As the PS3 is region-free and compatible with PS1 games, I figured I could just play it using my standard North American PS3. But I was wrong. For the sake of this video, I used the ePSXE emulator, which awesomely allowed me to play and record the game on a PC while still using my original discs. And with that, let's pop in Disc 1 and get started. Already, we're off on a good note. We're presented with a really cool looking anime intro that really seems to set the mood well for the game ahead. What's really awesome here is that there's actually a different intro sequence for each disc, with each intro featuring scenes from that disc chapter of the story. What's also pretty interesting here is that the intro music here is the same as in the Japanese version of Mega Man 8. This song is called Electrical Communication. In the late 1990s in Japan, it was essentially the theme of classic Mega Man. Created by the group Ganesia, it's energetic and in your face, and it really puts you in the mood for saving the world. which is to say, it's everything that a Mega Man theme should be. It's a shame that it never made its way into any Western Mega Man releases. What's odd here is how compressed it sounds compared to the Mega Man 8 version. This is actually an issue with most of the music in Super Adventure Rockman. Trying to listen to the game's soundtrack through the use of a CD player will reveal that all of the music, except for the song used in the first-person battle sequences, are just compressed parts of the cutscenes and not listenable as separate tracks. I'm not exactly sure why this is the case, and I know this may seem nitpicky to some, but it did catch me off guard the first time I booted up Super Adventure Rockman. Here's a look at the SAR and Mega Man 8 opening sequences side by side. However, even if the audio quality isn't as clear as in Mega Man 8, let me just say it now, the animation style here is better than that in the Mega Man 8 cutscenes. That style looked like a weird cross between the classic Mega Man concept art and the art of the American Ruby Spears Mega Man cartoon. The SAR style, though, really and truly looks like the Japanese Mega Man box art being brought to life. I really love how all of the characters look here, especially the Robot Masters. Mega Man himself looks great, and he's really expressive. I only have a couple of major gripes here. First, some backgrounds are very obviously reused on occasion. I also feel like I had to watch this magical girl-esque battle transformation sequence more times than I'd care to. But besides that, I adore this. It honestly looks like everything I want when I hear the words Mega Man anime. Oh, also for some reason only the opening and credit sequences on each disc are presented in full screen mode. Yeah, the rest of the cutscenes here are presented in this boxed window. I have a feeling that this was just done to conserve disk space though, which, as it was the late 90s, totally makes sense. So, what's the story of this choose your own Mega Man anime adventure? Well, here's the best I can gather through a mix of context clues, wiki answers, and the only guide available in English for this game on GameFAQs. The game here is split into 3 episodes, with 1 on each disc. There's Episode 1, Temple of the Moon, Episode 2, To the Death, The Wily Numbers, and Episode 3, The Final Battle. The story begins with us learning that it's the year 20XX, and a bunch of mysterious ruins have seemingly randomly risen from the earth in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. The United Nations responds to this by sending in an international team of scientists to study the ruins. They name this area the Landfront Ruins, with the large, ominous-looking pyramid at its center being named the Temple of the Moon. What's perhaps most odd about these ruins is that any machinery that's brought near them begins to short circuit, due to a strange electromagnetic field surrounding the area. The scientists, though, ultimately conclude that the ominous ruins that literally rose from the earth are just remnants of the ancient Mayan civilization, and leave soon afterwards. Side note, the Mayan civilization was based in parts of Mexico and Central America, not the Amazon rainforest. Oh well, I guess I'm just going to have to dock this robot anime adventure game some points for historical accuracy. Anyways, both Dr. Light, the creator of Mega Man, and series big bad Dr. Wily realize that a mysterious set of ruins that just rose from the ground and have the ability to make machines short circuit is potentially dangerous, especially so in a world that's heavily reliant on robots. Thus, Dr. Wily, on Dr. Light's suggestion, goes to explore the ruins and discovers an ancient alien supercomputer by the name of Raw Moon. Being the absolute dipshit that he is, Dr. Wily's first reaction to encountering the evil black orb of potentially limitless knowledge is to plug his laptop into it. Raw Moon, after running a virus scan of all the totally safe work stuff on the Mad Doctor's laptop, finds the design files for the Robot Masters from Mega Man 2 and 3. It then proceeds to revive all of them. Then, through the use of gentle persuasion, Dr. Wily is convinced to use these revived robots to try to conquer the world, and to also use the wealth of knowledge provided by Raw Moon to begin creating a new highly advanced killing machine named Raw Thor. Several weeks pass following Dr. Wily's discovery of Raw Moon, but all seems fine in the world as a whole. But then, one day, an electromagnetic wave strikes the Earth, carrying with it effects that plague some robots like a computer virus. This ends up affecting Mega Man's sister Roll, who suddenly collapses one day while working at Dr. Light's lab. Her chips nearly fried and requiring an extensive system restore, Dr. Light places her into a coma-like state and hooks her up to a machine, putting her in what seems to be the robot equivalent of life support. Dr. Wily soon makes a broadcast to the United Nations, stating that either the nations of the world all surrender to him, or in 2 weeks' time, he will use the power of Ra Moon to shut down all machinery worldwide and force civilization back to the Stone Age. Not wanting to surrender to the madman, the UN actually assembles a military group and sends him out to confront Dr. Wily in the Amazon. Meanwhile, Dr. Light upgrades Mega Man, the Robot Masters from Mega Man 1, and I'm assuming Proto Man as well, and sends them all off to the Amazon, hoping that they can stop Dr. Wily and save the world from Ra Moon. The playable portion of the adventure itself actually begins with Mega Man arriving in the Amazon, along with his dog and bird companions, Rush and Beat. In Disc 1, you'll potentially fight Robot Masters Metal Man, Bubble Man, Heat Man, Flash Man, Quick Man, and Shadow Man. However, there's various alternate paths you can take as well. These can range from small, such as having Beat search out a health restoring E-Tank, or large, such as choosing between fighting Bubble Man or Heat Man, with Proto Man taking on the other off-screen. Perhaps the coolest part of Disc 1 is the fight with Quick Man, or rather, how said fight can be completely averted. You're actually given the option to try to talk down Quick Man, and doing so will actually lead to him admitting that he has a lot of respect for Mega Man, and the two not fighting. I really love this, and it honestly makes it hit so much harder when, shortly afterwards, Quick Man sacrifices himself to save Mega Man from being killed by the crazed ninja robot Shadow Man. Episode 1 ends shortly after the Shadow Man fight, with us watching the death of Quick Man. And yeah, I know they're robots. Usually you can argue that they can technically be rebuilt. But in this case, the story actually presents a scenario where perhaps Ra Moon could prevent that from ever being possible. And that honestly is kind of dark for a series like this, but it also just makes it hit that much harder. Speaking of dark stuff, Episode 2 begins with the UN squadron arriving in the Amazon, only for their helicopters to be hit by electromagnetic waves from Ra Moon, killing them all instantly. Seriously, it's confirmed there are no survivors. Wow, that got dark. However, as cool as the Disc 2 opening is, most of the next 2 episodes are just you fighting Robot Masters. Yeah, there's a bit of banter here and there, and there's a cool gag done with Herdman in Episode 3 that pays homage to his fight strategy in Mega Man 3, but you don't get to choose between fights or talking down Robot Masters anymore. That's something that outright stops after Disc 1, and it's kind of a shame, especially since the entire game can be beaten in under 2 hours. The only other major optional path deviation comes at the beginning of Disc 2, where you have the option to obtain Proto Man's shield. I did not actually know that this was a thing, and that's a shame because it more or less makes the final boss fights a cakewalk. It literally reduces the damage you take from enemies by more than half, allowing you to get through most battles just by spamming the shoot button. Even though that already works most of the time anyways, but we'll get there in a bit. The game is really pretty linear after Disc 1. I mean, you can still choose between going left or right at certain spots in the story, and that may lead to you discovering E-Tanks or database cards, with the latter being info cards that can be viewed during battles that provide info on enemies. Between the beginning of Disc 2 and halfway through Disc 3 though, it just feels like a standard Mega Man adventure, but represented in anime form. Honestly, that'd perhaps be less disappointing if Episode 1 and the start of Episode 2 hadn't set a really high bar. It feels like stuff was being rushed towards the end, especially since I really noticed backgrounds being reused towards the end of the game. Anyways, we learned that roughly 20,000 years ago, Ra Moon was traveling through space, looking for suitable planets to conquer. It eventually crashed on Earth, and through some very 2001-esque shenanigans, gave humanity access to tools and advanced knowledge, but also taught them about violence. War broke out among the ancient humans, and many began to worship Ra Moon, with the Temple of the Moon being built in its honor. Ra Moon planned to eventually have humanity wipe itself out, and then rule the Earth through the use of an army of machines based off of its own technology. However, humanity's violence soon grew to a point that was too much even for Raw Moon, and it decided to put its plans on hold, going into a long, deep hibernation. Fast forward to most of the way through Mega Man's adventure, and he made it inside the Temple of the Moon itself, and fought against Sparkman from Mega Man 3. However, the battle takes a toll on Mega Man's systems, and he passes out shortly afterwards. Soon, he's revived, finding himself in the temple's central chamber, being looked over by Dr. Wily, Raw Moon, and Raw Thor. As a show of power, Raw Moon revives all of the previously defeated Robot Masters again. Dr. Wily prepares to use Raw Thor, his ultimate creation, to finish off Mega Man once and for all. But then, instead of attacking Mega Man, Raw Thor turns and attacks Dr. Wily's Robot Masters, before turning on and nearly killing the Mad Doctor himself. Stunned, Wily yells in anger at Raw Moon, who reveals that it was just using Wily for its own gains, and that it was using Wily's quote-unquote imperfect robot designs while it worked to power up both itself and Raw Thor. As far as Raw Moon is concerned, Dr. Wily was just as disposable as the rest of humanity. Raw Thor then engages in battle with Mega Man, but is promptly defeated. Raw Moon then decides, in true fashion as the true big bad of the story, that it will just have to take on Mega Man itself. It lambasts Dr. Wily's robot designs again before transitioning into its own battle-ready form, the New Yellow Devil. So it followed up mocking Dr. Wily's robot designs by taking the form of one of Dr. Wily's robot designs. Yeah, whatever, I'll roll with it. Raw Moon engages in battle and seems to be able to finish off the Blue Bomber, but at the last minute, all the Robot Masters jump in front of the blast, sacrificing themselves so Mega Man can keep fighting. Energized and inspired, Mega Man takes on the New Yellow Devil, and after intense battle, emerges victorious. Raw Moon is defeated, the world is no longer in danger, and Mega Man celebrates on a cliffside with the other Mega Man 1 Robot Masters, while Dr. Wily escapes in the background, vowing to come back in countless future Mega Man sequels. That, of course, is assuming that you get the good ending. Most of the time, if you lose a battle against a Robot Master, you'll just be quickly rescued by Proto Man or one of the Mega Man 1 Robot Masters, and then be put back into the battle. However, it is possible to get a game over here, especially so as the GameFAQ guide I use has a couple of choices mixed up in episode 2. There are multiple different game over endings, with the bad endings available to you depending on the part of the story you're in. There are two particularly notable bad endings. One comes in episode 2 where Mega Man just gives up, succumbing to a feeling of hopelessness. Then, we get to watch on in pain as he and Dr. Light watch Roll suffer an agonizing death. The other bad ending of note is the one that comes if you lose against Raw Moon in the final battle, where you watch the supercomputer cackle like a madman and watch as the world slowly turns gray, with all life being wiped out. While this type of darkness wouldn't be out of place in the likes of the Mega Man X series, it really is a change of pace for the classic series, and as odd as this sounds, I kind of like it. I really do like a ton of what the story presents, even if I only understand the basic gist of what's going on. It's just really neat watching all of these characters interact with one another in a world directly based off of the classic games. There's also none of the weird buffness or backstory changes that appear in the likes of the American Ruby Spears cartoon. It feels like you're just watching an actual anime adaptation of the games. I just wish that Disc 2 and 3 were more like Disc 1, as my favorite parts of the story are actually watching the characters interact with one another. The Quick Man sequence alone is one of the most unique things I've ever seen in a Mega Man game, and I wish that there were more segments where fighting could be avoided like this. Isn't part of Mega Man's personality that he considers fighting to be an absolute last resort? Of course, there are a few other issues of the story as well. For example, why are only the Robot Masters from Mega Man 1, 2, and 3 present here? The presence of Beat the Bird makes it obvious that this game takes place at least sometime after Mega Man 4, as Beat themselves was not introduced until Mega Man 5. I don't know when this game even takes place. I mean, to be fair, if you ask Keiji Inafune when this game takes place in the Mega Man timeline, he'd probably just say nowhere, as he doesn't even consider it canon. let's pretend for a moment that it is considered canon. Beat makes it clear that this is at some point post Mega Man 4, but Otto, the series staple shopkeeper character, is absent here. As Otto wasn't introduced until Mega Man 7, and as Dr. Wily was in jail between Mega Man 6 and 7, my best guess is that this story takes place between Mega Man 5 and 6. Though, honestly, it'd be nice if the game just outright told me where it takes place, even if this was just in like a database card or something. But even with those gripes, I really do like the story overall. I've always been a fan of choose your own adventure style stories, and though this story here is simple, it's a fun watch. Also, if you just want to see a certain part of the story, the game actually lets you start from any disc at any time. The only perk you have for completing the discs in order is that you can carry over weapons obtained in one disc to another. If this game consisted of nothing but the choose your own adventure style gameplay, I could perhaps recommend this game to die-hard Mega Man fans. But there exists one other component of this game, one that makes me rank it as by far one of the worst games in the entire series. These, of course, are the battle sequences. Instead of being shown a cool actiony fight sequence when you encounter a robot master, you instead shift into these first-person battle sequences. And to be fair, they do have some components of the classic Mega Man formula to them. Bosses all have patterns you need to recognize, and defeating each boss will give you a weapon to use against future bosses. Each boss is also weak against the weapon of another, and you'll know if you're using a boss's weakness if the weapon causes them to be stunned for a second. However, these are by far the clunkiest first-person segments I've ever had the displeasure of playing in any video game ever. Despite being in a first-person view, you can't move around at all. Instead, you have to use a D-pad or the left joystick to move around a targeting reticle and blast enemies. This may seem simple in theory, but the reticle moves so slowly and the hit detection often feels spotty at best. It honestly feels like something that was intended to be used with a light gun, like in Lethal Enforcers or something. But then, at the last minute, it was changed to be controller-based because Capcom thought that'd give it more mass appeal or something? I don't know. It's just so incredibly janky, and it doesn't help that these bosses have massive amounts of health. Sure, if you get a proto shield, you'll just take damage, and sure, you'll be given a bunch of health and item restores throughout the game, but that just means that a lot of these fights will just end up being downright boring. And if there's anything worse than bad gameplay, it's boring gameplay. But then, you get to Raw Thor, and if you're as unlucky as I am, you'll somehow end up without the proto shield and with only one life restore. This boss battle sucked. It felt like pure luck, and it took me 5 tries just to beat this guy, and even then, that was through just spamming various special weapons as much as possible. Perhaps the cherry on top of that is, if you get a game over and get sent back to your last save spot, you can't skip cutscenes. On occasion, you might have to rewatch seemingly 10 minutes worth of cutscene with no way to skip it. It's really funny how much of a pain Raw Thor is, because Raw Moon in his new Yellow Devil form actually isn't too bad. I mean, sure, the final boss hits like a truck, but it's so incredibly slow, and like with every boss in the game, you can actually destroy its projectiles by shooting at them. This guy was beefy enough and had so much health though, that I actually had to pause the game a few times due to feeling my thumb get sore. I have no idea why anyone thought these battle scenes were any good. They're terrible, and I hate them. Surprisingly though, that's not why Inafune disowned this game. No, Inafune instead disowned Super Adventure Rockman due to both hating the full motion video style and due to feeling that story was too dark. He would say, and I quote in an interview published in the Mega Man Complete Works book, "To be honest, I feel I owe the players an apology for this one. There's a phase when the company, Capcom, was basically selling Mega Man to the lowest bidder, and I really feel like this title is the worst of the worst. The ultimate unspoken rule about making a game that is geared towards children is that you simply can't kill anyone. But here you have military helicopters falling out of the sky and people dying in droves. If it had been up to me, I would have at least made it so they all got away safely via parachutes or something. Then, if that wasn't bad enough, Roll dies, and to top it all off, the whole world is destroyed. I was like, did they really have to go that far?" This Inafune interview cemented Super Adventure Rockman as the black sheep of the series. It was hated by the then series head, it couldn't even be properly completed by the company who was originally developing it, and Capcom would ultimately decide to not release it outside of Japan. There has only been one time since that anything officially Mega Man related seems to have referenced this game. This occurred during the incredible Archie Mega Man comic. May it rest in peace. This adaptation was called Blackout: The Curse of Ra Moon. This version is mostly faithful to the game, except is here set between Mega Man 2 and 3. It's stuff like this that really makes me miss the Mega Man comic, especially as this arc was later followed up by an adaptation of the Game Boy version of Mega Man 5. As for Super Adventure Rockman itself, I can totally understand why Capcom would never localize this game. Inafune's opinion, though, probably had nothing to do with that. After all, Mega Man X6 would later come in 2001, and that was a game that Inafune never wanted to exist. Instead, I think this just came down to logistics. Outside of battles, Super Adventure Rockman is a fully animated interactive movie that would require a fully featured English dub to be viable for release in North America. Nowadays, I think it would be really cool to see Capcom take this game, add in some new animated fight sequences where the first-person battles were, clean up the existing footage, and release a dub of it on Netflix. It could be like the anime equivalent to the likes of Bandersnatch. But honestly, I don't think that'll ever happen. Besides, I'm really glad that Capcom didn't try to release a dub of this back in the 90s. As Mega Man 8 had shown, good voice acting wasn't something that Capcom USA was interested in investing in back then. With all of its flaws in mind, could I recommend Super Adventure Rockman even to the most die-hard Mega Man fans? Absolutely not. Even though the story is really cool and I really enjoy the choose your own adventure elements, the first-person gameplay sections are so awful that I really don't think that anyone could get a lot of enjoyment out of this title. That said, though I wouldn't recommend playing Super Adventure Rockman, I think that if you're a big Mega Man fan, perhaps consider looking up a walkthrough and watching this game. After all, the majority of the game is just an interactive movie. It'll be like watching a Mega Man anime. A Mega Man anime you'll need a GameFAQs walkthrough to understand. You know, maybe you're just better off reading the comic adaptation. So with that, I'd like to once again thank Zen Plus for sponsoring today's video. The Zen Plus Black Friday sale is going on until the 3rd of December 2019, so make sure to click the link in the description or the pinned comment to not only check it out, but also see some of my favorite weird and retro Mega Man items from Japan. Zen Plus is part of Zen Market, and everything on there can be shipped worldwide. So go ahead, click the link, and check out the Zen Plus Black Friday sale while you still can. And of course, I'd also like to end off this episode by giving a huge thank you to some of my patrons. That's Justin Chipman, The Golden Bolt, Dillanola, and Robert and Abby Hornibrook. Seriously, y'all are awesome, and the support is really appreciated. But you know what? I also really appreciate you watching this right now, because you're awesome, and I really do hope that you enjoyed this video. So, with that, are there any weird Mega Man things or weird import games in general that you want me to check out in the future? Let me know down in the comment section below, and while you're at it, why don't you subscribe to Stuff We Play for more great content like this. So with that, thank you very much for watching, stay classy, and I'll see you next time.